Okay, I hope I'm audible to all my students who are attending this particular lesson for the Cambridge International AS Level Economics course. In this particular lesson, I'm going to continue with the discussion of the very first module, which is basic economic ideas and resource allocation. And within that, the subtopic which we were doing in the previous lesson was the economic methodology. We had talked about what is economics. We had also talked about the branches of economics, which are micro and macroeconomics respectively, their key aims. Okay, we had also talked about the difference between positive and normative statements, and we had learned that positive statements are more of factual statements which are supported or backed by strong evidence, whereas normative statements are mere value judgments. We had also talked about certain important terminologies like the meaning of ceteris paribus in economics. Remember, when economists come up with models which are mathematical representation of economic theories, they make the assumption of ceteris paribus, which means keeping all other factors or variables constant. We do this to make the model look more simple to analyze. Okay, now in this particular lesson, we are going to continue with a few more important terminologies we use in economics, like the concept of time periods, like the concept of thinking at the margin. And towards the end of this lesson, I'm also going to do one or two MCQs or objective type problems just to give students an idea about what kind of questions can be expected from this particular subtopic. Okay, so I'm going to make you write a couple of notes in this lesson. So I hope students who are attending this particular lesson have something to write upon. Okay, let's quickly start with the discussion and let's continue with first looking at what is meant by thinking at the margin and then exploring the different time periods we have in economics. So let's quickly start with this particular lesson. So I am just writing the main heading for completeness. This is Cambridge International AS Economics course. Cambridge International AS Economics course. And we are looking at the first module, which is basic economic ideas. Basic economic ideas and resource allocation. Okay, this is the first module within the AS economics course. And within this, we are continuing with the subtopic on economic methodology. So I hope students attending this lesson are clear with the sequencing of the topics. Basic economic ideas and resource allocation in itself is a module which contains further chapters in it. This is the second chapter we are looking at for discussion. Okay, so let's talk about thinking at the margin. When we say that economists usually think at the margin, what does it usually mean? Okay, so I can say that decision making by consumers, firms, and governments is based on choices made at the margin. Is based on the choices made at the margin. Okay, by this economists mean that a small change in one variable, such as consumer income, will lead to further small changes in other variables, such as, I can write, such as consumer spending. We know that income has an impact on consumer spending. It also has an impact on imports. So let me explain this to students. When we talk about thinking at the margin, okay, decision making by consumers, firms, and governments. This decision making always involves making choices at the margin. When I say choices at the margin, it means we are looking at tiny changes in one variable having an impact on tiny changes in another variable. For example, if I talk about the consumers, how tiny changes, how small changes in income, how small changes in the income of the consumer can lead to small changes in spending and imports by the consumers. Okay, so when I say at the margin, it means you are literally looking at smaller, very tiny changes. For example, I can take another example. When we talk about firms, till what point will a given firm produce? A firm will produce up to that point where the extra revenue it generates from producing that output exactly matches the extra cost of producing. Now, this is the decision taken at the margin. And I can write this. Another example would be, where firms will produce up to the point where the revenue generated by an extra unit of output is equal to the cost of producing that unit of output. Okay, that means for a firm to decide where should it stop in terms of producing an output level, a firm will stop at that output level where the revenue generated by producing that extra output level exactly matches the cost of producing that output level. In microeconomics, we call it as marginal revenue being equal to the marginal cost. Marginal revenue in economics is the additional revenue from producing one more unit of output. Marginal cost is the additional cost incurred by the firm from producing an extra unit of that output. So a firm essentially will stop at that output level where the marginal revenue from producing that output level exactly equals the marginal cost of it. This is one brilliant example of thinking at the margin. Okay, so I hope students have understood this. Now, the last thing we look at, the last concept we discussed is the concept of time periods. So if I erase all this off, we look at importance of time periods. Importance of time periods in economics. So I can write basically in terms of the classification, we can classify the time periods into short run, long run, and very long run. Okay, so we can classify the time periods. We can classify the time periods into the first one being short run. let's understand the features of a short run time period. So the short run is a time period in which it is possible to change only some inputs. In which it is possible to change only some inputs. And typically, it is the labor which can be easily changed in the short run. So I can write typically it is when labor, a variable source, it is when labor, a variable source of the factor of production, can be increased or decreased, can be increased or decreased to change what is produced. All what I'm trying to say is, students, in the short run, at least one of the factors is going to be fixed. All factors cannot be variable in the short run. One of the factors will be fixed for sure. That means you will always have a constraint in terms of a fixed factor in the short run. You can't change it. Like, for example, capital, for example, land. You can't immediately come up with more land, or you can't immediately come up with more machinery in the short run. It takes time. However, labor is one factor which might be easy. Given that the labor laws are flexible in your economy, it might be easy to hire or fire labor in the short run. Labor can be easily changed in the short run, provided again the labor laws in your economy are flexible and not stringent. Okay, so I can further write, so with all other factors of production, with all other factors of production, such as capital resources, remaining the same, a firm taking on more workers, may be able to increase the quantity of the good it produces. The quantity of the good it produces. It means with one of the factors of production, like capital, fixed in the short run, more labor I hire in the short run, I can increase the output level. So the whole paragraph, if I sum up, is telling you that short run is that time period in economics where at least one of the factors of production is fixed. The rest can be variable, but one of the factors has to be fixed. Okay, so usually it is the labor which is majorly the variable factor in the short run, because you can increase or decrease it easily. Capital and land and other factors are usually fixed in the short run. You can't change them in the short run. That means in the short run, with the same fixed factor, if I hire more of the variable factor, which is labor, that can increase my output. Okay, now erasing all this off, let's talk about the long run. Long run. In the long run, it is possible. Now, in the long run, you don't have any fixed factor. All factors of production are variable. In the long run, it is possible for all factors of production. It is possible for all the factors of production or resources to change. So, in the long run, a firm may improve. On the quality and quantity. A firm may improve on the quality as well as the quantity of its capital by building a new factory, to increase its output. What I'm trying to say is that in the short run, remember, capital was fixed, it was not changing. But when you are in the long run, capital also becomes variable. That means in the long run, it is possible for the firms to change not only the quantity but also the quality of the capital being used. You can't build a factory in the short run, but in the long run, definitely you can come up with a new factory. You can increase your capital. So the key difference between the short run and the long run is, in the short run, at least one of the factors is fixed. In the long run, all factors of production become variable. Okay, so hoping students have understood this. Then third point, we look at the third time period, which is the very long run. Now, in the very long run, not only the factors of production are variable, but certain key inputs like government regulations, technology, social concerns, they also become variable. In the long run, factors of production were variable, but key inputs might still be fixed. Government laws, government regulations can't change in the long run, but they can change in the very long run. So I can write that this is that time period. This is that time period where not only are all the factors of production variable, not only are all the factors of production variable, but all other key inputs are also variable. These key inputs include technology, government regulations, and social concerns. The society's tastes, the government regulations, technology, these are certain key inputs which change only in the very long run. They don't change in the long run. So if I sum up, short run, at least one of the factors of production is fixed. Okay, I can sum up. Short run, at least one of the factors of production is fixed. Long run, all factors of production are variable. all the factors of production are variable, but the key inputs like technology, government regulations, etc., are still fixed. And the very long run, all factors of production plus all the key inputs as discussed above become variable. So this summary highlights the key points of difference between the short run, long run, and the very. Okay, so with this, we are done with the chapter economic methodology. This was the second lecture, a short one again. If I come to the back problems now, look at the exam style questions. Now, these exam style questions are the ones which are the multiple choice questions at the back of the book. Okay, so let's look at the first problem. Which of the following is a positive statement? Now remember from my previous lecture on economic methodology, a positive statement is always a fact backed by some strong evidence. So if you look at all of them, wages in Indonesia are likely to be unevenly distributed. It is a fact or a suggestion. The moment you see likely, they are likely, it means there's a judgment. So it's a normative statement. It's not a positive statement. When you see that wages in Indonesia are likely to be unevenly distributed, it means you're giving a judgment. And whenever you are giving a judgment, it is not a positive statement, it is a normative statement. That means this is not a positive statement. In 2019, the average wage in Indonesia was 3.8 million Indonesian rupiah per month. Now, this is a fact. This is a fact. There is no suggestion given here. It is a fact that in this particular year, the average wage in Indonesia was this much. Since it's a fact, this is a positive statement. So my answer is option B. Let's look at C. Is C a positive statement? The average hourly wage in Jakarta should be. The moment you see should, it means it is a normative, not a positive statement. Whenever you see the word should in the statement, automatically it's a suggestion. The average hourly wage in Jakarta should be higher than elsewhere in Indonesia. You're giving a suggestion. It's a positive statement. It's not a positive statement, it's a normative statement. D, the average wage in Indonesia depends on how it is measured. Again, it's a suggestion. It's a suggestion that the average wage in Indonesia should depend on how it is measured. So again, it's like a suggestion. It is a judgment, value judgment statement. It's not a fact. Because different economists can come up with different ways of measuring the average wage. That means this is also not a positive statement. That means my answer is option B. Insert the correct words into the sentence. A dash statement in economics is the one that is subjective. The moment you hear the word subjective, your answer is normative. So either it's this or this. Because positive statements are never subjective. They are factual statements. Normative statements are subjective and dash be tested by using real world evidence. They cannot be tested by real world evidence. Only positive statements are backed or tested by real world evidence. Normative statements are merely factual judgments. They are merely value judgments. Positive statements are factual. Positive statements are factual. They're actually facts. Normative statements are value judgments, which are very subjective and they can't be tested by evidence. That means my answer is option A. Normative statement is that statement which cannot be tested by using real world. My answer is option A. So this is just to give students an idea about, the kind of questions or the MCQs which come. Obviously, I will be doing more MCQ practice, but these were the MCQs given at the back of the book, and it was my job to also discuss the back problems of the book. Okay, so in the next lesson, we are going to start with the discussion of chapter 3, which is factors of production within the first module, which is basic economic ideas and resource allocation. So I stop in this particular lecture. I hope students have enjoyed this lesson. Any doubt, you can unmute your mic and ask, or you can get in touch with me for doubts on call or WhatsApp, or you can mail me your doubts at divineschoolof economics@gmail.com. This is where I stop in this lesson.